I'm Tavis, Smiley. Glad to have you with us in this hour of our program. And what an hour I expect it to be as we talk with longtime AJC, Atlanta Journal-Constitution, reporter Ernie Suggs about Ronald Reagan's controversial states' rights stump speech appealing to white supremacists in Philadelphia, Mississippi 45 years ago this week. Reagan delivered the speech mere miles away from the site where 3 civil rights workers were murdered and buried in shallow graves by members of the KKK in 1964. We all know their names these days: Andrew Goodman, Michael Schwerner, and James Chaney. Reagan didn't even bother to acknowledge the murders in his speech, just one of many violent assaults on black civil rights advocates and white allies, and there's been no shortage, as we discussed in our first hour, no shortage of race-baiting, bottom-feeding conservatives ever since. Donald Trump has upended 60 years of civil rights gains in a matter of months. We'll come back to that later in this hour. Ernie Suggs also had the honor of working with my friend Andrew Young on his memoir, The Many Lives of Andrew Young. We'll talk about that perhaps a little bit later in this hour as well. Before I commence the dialogue, though, with Ernie Suggs of the AJC, some sound of Ronald Reagan 45 years ago this week.
I believe there are programs like that, programs like education, others that should be turned back to the states and the local communities with the tax sources to fund them, and let the people choose the I believe in states' rights. I believe in people doing as much as they can for themselves at the community level and the private level. And I believe that we've distorted the balance of our government today by giving powers that were never intended in the Constitution to that federal establishment. And if I do get the job I'm looking for, I'm going to devote myself to trying to reorder those priorities and to restore to states and local communities those functions which properly belong there. I'm going to try to change federal regulations and a tax structure that has made this once great, powerful industrial giant in this land, in the world, now with a lower rate of productivity than any of the other industrial nations, with a lower rate of savings and investment on the part of our people, and put us back where we belong.
I said earlier, Ernie Suggs, on today's program, that Ronald Reagan gives this speech 45 years ago this week, and it has been a race to the bottom. They've been going down the rabbit hole ever since on the GOP side of the aisle. Good to have you on the program, Ernie. How are you, sir?
Hi, I'm doing wonderful. Thanks for having me, Tavis.
So this moment is a critical moment 45 years ago, given the GOP that we know these days, or don't know, as it were. So let me just start with a couple of broad questions, and we'll let it do what it do and work our way through this hour that I expect to be an amazing dialogue with you, and I thank you for your time. So to your mind, take me back 45 years ago and draw a line from then to now.
Well, for one, I was 12 years old 45 years ago.
Yeah.
So I don't remember the speech as it happened. But in hindsight, and what I do, where I went to college, and what I know about history, what I know about politics, it was a very disturbing time. This was the moment that Ronald Reagan decided that he was going to wink to that particular nod of the country.
Mm-hmm.
He was in a pitched battle with an incumbent president at the time, Jimmy Carter, who was right here from Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to appeal to that base, so he chose. He didn't choose Jackson, Mississippi. He chose Philadelphia, Mississippi, which is, as your listeners know, which had a very, very troubling history that wasn't that far away at the time he decided to do that. So that wink and that nod to that particular segment of the voters that he wanted to attract, pull away from Jimmy Carter's Southern strength, was kind of, it draws a lot of parallels to what we're seeing now. A lot of it now is more direct. A lot of it now is more in your face. But Reagan, who was a master politician, although, to the consternation of some of his staff, if you want to look at it politically, it was a brilliant move. But if you want to look at it like as a diabolical way to kind of like reach a different base. That's what it was.
Yeah. I'll take both of those words. It was brilliant in terms of its strategy, but diabolical in terms of its impact and effects. I think both of those words are appropriate. We'll talk in this hour about the parallels to now. But let me just ask this question before we go forward here. And if I had a dime for every time I've heard this, I might be independently wealthy now. But in the era of Donald Trump, we hear all the time that if Ronald Reagan were here these days, he wouldn't even recognize the GOP. Maybe he wouldn't. What they don't tell you, though, is that Reagan, as I said earlier, started this journey down the rabbit hole. Nobody reminds us of that ever, Ernie, in these conversations about the fact that Reagan wouldn't recognize the GOP these days.
Yeah, and that's a great point. I think a lot of people say that. A lot of people try to use Reagan as that kind of like
standard bearer, yeah,
of what the Republican Party is. He's strong, upright, standing straight and speaking, well, and laughing and giggling and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, he is the one who started this. It's funny because I've been listening to a lot of go-go music lately for some crazy reason. And you listen to music, you don't really listen to the lyrics. And there was a song called "The Word" by the Junkyard Band, and it's really, I would love for your listeners to kind of find it. It's called "The Word," and in the song, it just talks about Reagan. It talks about how Reagan took the food stamp money, how Reagan took the student loan money, and how he's doing all this stuff and giving it to the Pentagon, giving it to his wealthy friends. So yes, he is the one who's kind of started that thing. And we were talking about it as a people. We were talking about it as a country as far back as 1980, right after his election, up until what we're seeing now 45 years later, through the two Bushes, and now through what President Trump is doing.
Ronald Reagan started this mess 45 years ago this week. We'll talk about it in this hour with Ernie Suggs of the AJC. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Hope, agency, dignity. This is Tavis Smiley.
Can you dig it? Come on!
Make a move into a home of your own. With City National Bank's Ladder Up Home Loan Grant, you could receive up to $20,000 that you never need to pay back. Use it toward your down payment, save on closing costs, or to buy down your mortgage rate. Find out more at cnb.com/ladderuphome. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Property must be in a qualifying market in California, New York, or New Jersey. Additional terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Terms are subject to change without notice. City National Bank is an equal housing lender. Member FDIC. NMLS number 536994.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we aim to foster enlightening, sustainable, restorative dialogue, and we welcome unapologetically progressive viewpoints that empower fellow citizens. We are now accepting submissions for KBLA Talk 1580 guest editorials like this one.
With the KBLA Talk 1580 guest editorial, I'm Martin Gordon, chair of the Pasadena Community Coalition. Recently, I listened to a Tavis Smiley show conversation with James Farr. James said something that caught me off guard. Black out the Dina is gone. My community is being murdered. I said murdered.
All you have to do is go to our website homepage at KBLA1580.com and click on the icon that says KBLA Guest Editorials to learn more about our editorial standards and content submission guidelines. As long as the topic aligns with our mission, we are happy to review your submission and consider it for broadcast. We can't make any promises, but we want to amplify progressive perspectives that are community-focused and solution-oriented. So, go to KBLA1580.com right now to download all the information you need about our guest editorials. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Are you having trouble hearing? Hearing loss can devastate the quality of your life. Now, there's an affordable fix for you or your loved one. Rated the best hearing aids of 2025 by Forbes Health, Audion Hearing has the highest quality hearing aids at the lowest prices, starting at just $98 a pair.
I actually like them better than my old $5,000 hearing aids.
I could not believe how my hearing and life changed.
Join over 1 million happy customers by going to audionhearing.com. That's AUDIEN hearing.com.
Sometimes an identity threat is a ring of professional hackers. And sometimes it's an overworked accountant who forgot to encrypt their connection while sending bank details.
I need a coffee.
And you need LifeLock, because your info is in endless places. It only takes one mistake to expose you to identity theft. LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second. If your identity is stolen, we'll fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year with promo code NEWS at LifeLock.com. Terms apply.
Less monologue, more dialogue. Tavis Smiley continues right now.
Little go-go for a Wednesday. You heard Ernie Suggs. Let it ride for a second, Miles. You heard Ernie Suggs a minute ago tease me. That's what I took it as, a tease. You can't tease me with a song that I ain't familiar with and think I ain't gonna find it. Ernie said I encourage folk to find it. Well, that's what Miles did. We found it. It's called "The Word" by the Junkyard Band, and if you heard some of those lyrics, they're talking about Ronald Reagan in the go-go track. I should start, Ernie, by asking, since you went there, what's been happening in your life of late that's got you listening to go-go? I ain't mad at you, but what happened, Ernie?
Well, I went to college in the 1980s, and we have a very, very robust, well, hopefully it's not a long story. We have a very robust alumni page on Facebook. I went to North Carolina Central University, and we have a question of the week every week. And this, a couple of weeks ago, the question of the week is, what song takes you back to college? So we had members from the 1960s up until 2024 who graduated from college who were putting their songs in. Someone made a playlist for the alumni to listen to, and "The Word" by the Junkyard Band was on the playlist, and I just started listening to it. And it's kind of funny, and I think we all go through this, is that I've heard that song, I've known that song for 30, 40 years, but I never knew what the lyrics were. I've heard it, you dance to it, and then I was like, oh my God, they're talking about some really serious stuff in the middle of a go-go beat, which is what makes music important, I think. It kind of makes it, it kind of talks to us on different levels.
Yeah, it does. So I'm glad you referenced it. I'm glad we got a chance to play a little go-go for the audience. So on a Wednesday. So we're talking, in case you've just tuned in, about the fact, speaking of Ronald Reagan, that 45 years ago this week, Reagan gave his so-called states' rights speech. It was an appeal to a white supremacist based in Mississippi and throughout the South. As Ernie said earlier, in case you've just tuned in, would be running against Jimmy Carter had he gotten the nomination. And of course, he did get the nomination. He did run against Jimmy Carter. We know how that ended. Jimmy Carter's from the South, and Reagan was trying to tap in to Jimmy Carter's Southern support by once again appealing to these white supremacists in Mississippi and throughout the South. He'd been governor of California, but he went to Philadelphia, Mississippi, where they murdered Goodman, Schwerner, and Chaney to make this speech, to make this announcement. And there were folk then who saw it for what it was. So anybody who thought that Ronald Reagan, had he won, and obviously he did win, anybody who thought Reagan was going to show up differently than he did was, not paying attention. He made it abundantly clear in this states' rights speech in Philadelphia what he was going to do if he were elected, not unlike Donald Trump. Give him credit for at least telling you up front what the play is, what the playbook is. Ronald Reagan did it, Donald Trump did it, and they got in and they ran their play. So we're talking about it because this speech was, again, 45 years ago this week. And to my mind and the minds of many in the era of Trump, we keep asking ourselves, how did we get here? How did we get here? Dr. King famously asked, where do we go from here? We can talk about that as well. But the question of the hour is, how did we get here? And I would suggest to you, I would posit that part of the way we got here was starting with Ronald Reagan and that speech 45 years ago. And their protestations, notwithstanding that Reagan, were he alive today, wouldn't recognize the GOP. I got another frame for you. Ronald Reagan started this mess 45 years ago today, 45 years ago this week. And so here we are trying to make sense of all of this with Ernie Suggs, again, longtime reporter for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Also wrote a book along with my friend Andy Young called The Many Lives of Andrew Young. There's an Andrew Young connection to this. We'll get to that a little bit later, of course, in this hour. But we were talking about, you were talking at least about the parallels between then and now. So we got this full hour here, Ernie. Take some time and talk to me about what those parallels were that you were referencing a little bit earlier.
Well, I mean, you have an economy that's struggling, or that was struggling, and we're trying to figure out where we're going with that. We have a country that's coming off of, democratic leadership. We had that with President Carter, with President Biden, both one-term presidents, although Trump also succeeded Barack Obama into the White House. So we have those kind of parallels, but we also have the parallels as to, the 1980s, the beginning of the 1980s and the beginning of the the Trump era were also inflection points to the country. We were coming out of the 1970s. We saw that, we had already come out of the civil rights movement, so to speak. We had just come out of Vietnam. With the Trump era, we're coming out of, these two wars in the Gulf. We're coming out of a black president. So we're in these two very, very pivotal moments of transition where the country is looking for something different, whether or not they're looking for something different that's better for them or not, but they're looking for something different. And, I've written a lot about Jimmy Carter, and Jimmy Carter represented something that the country wanted to, we talk about famous speeches, we talk about Jimmy Carter's Malaise speech. We talked about, he wore the sweater and all that, So the country was kind of looking for something different. And I think that, when you talk about how did we get here, I also think, and I think, you probably studied this or heard this before, that also Trump was a backlash, from Barack Obama.
I'm going there. We going there. Yeah.
We had this black guy who was pretty much perfect in how he conducted himself. His only scandal was wearing a tan suit. And, that for some reason just triggered, I hate that word trigger, but it triggered half of the country to want something different. And that difference was Donald Trump. And, we are where we are now.
Yeah. So here's a question. It's a tricky question. It's a thorny question, but you're a columnist, you're a reporter rather for the AJC, so you can handle it because you've written about these things time and time again. So I'm glad you went there. I was going there anyway. Speaking about these parallels. So Ronald Reagan is running against Jimmy Carter if he gets the nomination. Again, he did. And so Reagan wants to push back on that in his own way. And, of course, there are any number of ways that Ronald Reagan did, in fact, push back on Jimmy Carter's agenda, starting with taking the solar panels off the White House. I mean, here we are now. Here we are now where climate is an existential crisis. What does Ronald Reagan do when he gets there? Takes the solar panels off the White House. That's just one of any number of issues we could talk about in terms of the pushback from Reagan to the Carter agenda, number one. Set that aside, though. So Reagan isn't coming behind a black president like Donald Trump is, but I think anybody who does not believe at this point, anybody who does not believe that part of the reason Donald Trump showed up in the first place was as a backlash to Barack Obama doesn't get it. I've told this story before, Ernie. I'll tell it again very quickly here. Harry Belafonte was my dear friend and brother. I miss him dearly. Miss talking to him all the time. But I was with Belafonte around the time of Barack Obama's inauguration, around the time of his election and inauguration. And I recall Mr. B saying to me, matter of fact, let me just back up. Mr. B and I are in conversation, and I look over and he's crying. I mean, and Belafonte didn't cry a lot, but I look over and his mood has become, all of a sudden sort of melancholic, and I see a tear run down his face, And I didn't know where that came from in the midst of our conversation. Something I said, something I did. Does my breath stink? I didn't know what it was that got his spirit to alter, to shift in that particular moment. Long story short, when I asked him, I said, "Mr. B, what's wrong? What's the problem?" And what he essentially said was, "Tavis, I've lived long enough to have seen this movie before. And I'm elated that Barack Obama is our first African-American president, but I also know what comes next." This is Harry Belafonte telling me this, and Obama ain't even got inside the White House yet. But he is already telling me there is going to be a backlash to this, the likes of which we can't even imagine right now. And so here we are, 15 years after Obama is elected, in conversation with Ernie Suggs, talking about the backlash that we now know that Trump represents as it relates to Barack Obama. I say all that as a backstory to ask a very simple but tricky and thorny question, as I warned you. It raises the question now in retrospect as to whether or not it was worth it. When you consider where we are right now, and I'm not talking about Obama per se, although he is the embodiment, of course, of the first black president. The broad question is, which I want to play with for a second here, is whether or not, given all the backlash, all the hell we're catching, and the moves that Trump has already made, the kind of pain we're going to be feeling for years down the road. He's fundamentally pushed the envelope off the table, out the door, out the White House, down the street, outside of the district. I mean, we see the way he's upending everything we know about the way this democracy is supposed to work, and he's doing it with the support of the United States Supreme Court. I could go on and on and on. I shut up. You take my question. Was it worth it?
That's a great, and it is a tricky question. I was thinking about the other day, what if Hillary had won the 2008 nomination and become president? I do think it was worth it, because I do think Barack Obama represented something in this country, represented something in us, that feeling that we're never going to forget.
Right.
That was very important for us to have that 8 years of power, that 8 years of watching this family be exemplary and understand that we can do it, that we, this country, if we work hard. No, well, I don't even want to say if we work hard, but if the opportunities are afforded to us on an equal basis, that we can succeed. Barack Obama showed us that we can do that, and he did a fantastic job. And I also think that, the struggles that the country's going through now, the hardships and what we're seeing now, is that, we are a resilient country. I've written a lot about how the resiliency of Black people. And, we have taken a lot of slings and arrows for the last 400 years, particularly the last 250 years since emancipation, or, well, less than 250 years. But we have taken a lot of slings and arrows, and we've always figured out ways in which to survive that and move forward from that. So I do think at some point, while the country is suffering and struggling right now and trying to figure out where our bearings are, particularly as African Americans, I do think that this is going to be a bridge that we're going to be able to cross at some point. Whether that's going to mean a new president, obviously, but I think this is an ordeal that we can deal with. It's kind of funny that people are saying people are doing the boots on the ground dance while the country is burning, and that is that's Black people. I've written about this a lot. Black people find ways to find joy and resistance, try to find ways to resist by different methods, and I think we're doing that now. Yep.
I want to challenge. I'm not going to do it right now. When we come forward, I got 2 minutes now. I want to just close this circle. When we come forward, though, in love and with respect, I want to challenge your notion about Black resiliency. Okay. I have a different way of seeing that, and I'm not so sure we are as resilient as we once were. And I want to talk about that, though, because I'm fascinated by that, and I was in conversation with some friends about this not too long ago. My thesis is, I'll just put it out there. We'll come to it in a few moments here. My thesis is that we are not our grandparents. We're not even our parents. Sure. But we're certainly not our grandparents. And I don't see the notion of Black resiliency. I don't think I see it in this moment in the way that you see it. And I love being Black. Wouldn't want to be anything else. But I also believe in telling the truth, as I see it at least. And I don't think that Black resiliency resonates with me in the same way that it resonates with you. And I want to just unpack that and have some fun with that. We'll do that when we come forward. But the thing I want to get to in the 90 seconds I have left here is, what do you make of the fact, to use your phrase, that Ronald Reagan 45 years ago this week did what he did, starting this mess with a wink and a nod? Draw the line, if you can, from Reagan using the wink and nod strategy to Donald Trump just being all up in your face.
Well, Donald Trump is using Truth Social and Twitter
Yeah.
as his wink and nod. He's bludgeoning us, if that's the correct word, with what he's doing. And like you said earlier, like Reagan, he is doing what he said he was going to do.
Yeah.
So in a theoretically, he is keeping his promises. He's doing what he said he's going to do. So that wink and that nod that Reagan was so cute at and charming at, Trump is doing it with a heavy hammer and a glove, heavy glove. And, it's the same thing, but it's just different methods in doing it.
Yeah. Black lives did not matter to Ronald Reagan, and black lives do not matter to Donald Trump. They have that in common. It was Ronald Reagan who fought tooth and nail against signing the King holiday. Speaking of Georgia, he's the best this country's ever produced, no less from the state of Georgia. Dr. King, I regard as the greatest American this country's ever produced. The audience hears me say that all the time. Reagan didn't want to sign that bill into law. Julianne Malveaux talking in our first time about Ronald Reagan and this mythical welfare queen that he talked about repeatedly in his stump speeches. But neither Reagan nor Donald Trump care about black lives. We'll talk about that parallel as we continue this discourse about Reagan taking the GOP down the rabbit hole 45 years ago this week with that states' rights speech. And we ain't even got to this notion of states' rights and Donald Trump's return to that notion as well. You're listening to the AJC's Ernie Suggs, and I'm glad about it on Tavis Smiley.
What's your quarrel with the world? You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
I'm Misty Jordan with BIN News Now. The fines for parents of children who are caught violating the city of Detroit's curfew are going up. Black City Councilman Coleman Young II says it's needed.
We cannot be a thriving city and we have 4-year-old blood shed in the street.
The Detroit City Council voted 7-1 yesterday to approve the increase from $75 to $250 for the first offense. A second offense will go from $100 to $500. Attorneys for Sean Diddy Combs want a federal judge to release him from jail. They're requesting he be let out on a $50 million bail and allowed to reside in his Miami home ahead of his October 3rd sentencing. And Baltimore City Public School students and children 12 and under can now use their student pass to ride the bus, light rail, and subway services for free. Get BIN News now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Compassion sponsorship means food, health care, education, and more for a child in poverty. And there are thousands of kids who've been waiting over a year. End their wait. Sponsor a child with compassion today. Text the word radio to 83393.
Is this the title? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The shooting Monday in a New York City building that houses the NFL's national headquarters has a very local connection. Shane Tamura, the identified man who shot and killed 4 people, was a running back for 2 Southern California high school football teams. Tamura played 3 years at Golden Valley High School in Santa Clarita. He transferred to Granada Hills Charter School in the San Fernando Valley for his senior year. The 27-year-old Tamura fatally shot himself after his shooting rampage. A letter found in Tamura's pocket indicated he may have been looking for NFL personnel in the Manhattan office building. In his letter, Tamura blamed the NFL for his CTE symptoms, a brain disease linked to head trauma. In the letter, Tamura requested to have his brain examined after the autopsy. Monday's tragedy could have been a lot worse. Tamura took the wrong elevator while trying to find the NFL's offices. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. The such music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Join the Dodgers on August 6th for Shohei Ohtani World Champion Ring Night at Dodger Stadium versus the Cardinals. Be one of the first 40,000 fans in and take home a special Shohei Ohtani World Champions ring. Celebrate Ohtani's record-breaking season. For info, visit Dodgers.com/promotions.
Paid for by government.com. Did you know? The United States Mint has issued a new Morgan silver dollar coin in proof condition for the first time. Not only that, they are also minted in 99.9% pure silver for the first time ever in history. Coin experts are calling this an amazing opportunity for anyone that knows the enduring popularity of Morgans. But you must hurry. Only 400,000 of these legal tender silver dollars were issued. These first ever Morgan silver dollars are brand new with stunning mirror-like finish, minted by the iconic San Francisco Mint. Call now and you're guaranteed a new first ever 99.9% pure silver proof Morgan dollar. To learn more, call 1-800-973-9717. If you order now, you will receive a free coin collector bonus pack, a $25 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-973-9717 now to secure your new Morgan silver dollars before they are gone. That's 1-800-973-9717.
Yeah, yo, come on. Here come the drums.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we fight the power every day.
Yeah, gotta give us what we want. Gotta give us what we need. Hey.
I listen to KBLA and I love the commercials. I know what the commercials mean. I also, if I'm looking and trying to figure something out, I need something to talk to me that might hit me. And it happens on TV because, every time they show a sporting event, they got the pharmaceutical companies back to back telling people how to fix the sickness on the same stuff that they sell them. So we get it.
Yep, we get it too, Chuck D. And that's why at KBLA Talk 1580, we don't black down.
Drop it! Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be. Fight the power! Fight the power!
Break out the champagne. Everybody get a glass.
Tavis Smiley is now ranked number 16 nationally and the highest rated talk show hosted by an African American on the 2025 Talkers Heavy 100 list of the most important talk radio hosts in the nation. Last year, Tavis ranked number 33 and the year before, number 45. The Tavis Smiley Show has rapidly expanded its national syndication to now include nearly 50 radio stations across the country and counting. Congratulations, Tavis.
Yeah.
More honesty than you can handle. More empowerment than you can imagine. You're tuned in to Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and longtime reporter for the AJC, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, Ernie Suggs, who I'm delighted to have on this program. We're just trying to make sense of what happened 45 years ago this week in Philadelphia, Mississippi, in case you've just tuned in. Ronald Reagan gave a very famous to some, infamous to others, but he gave a states' rights speech 45 years ago this week, and that speech essentially sent the GOP down the rabbit hole. And here we are 45 years later dealing with the results of that speech, and we're just trying to unpack what it meant for Reagan to show up in Mississippi, in Philadelphia specifically, as Ernie said, not in Jackson, not in the state capital. He made his way to Philadelphia. Why Philadelphia? You history buffs know that is where they killed Goodman, Schwerner, and Chaney, those three civil rights workers. In 1964, they were buried in shallow graves by the KKK. We all know the story of these three civil rights workers. So Reagan goes to Philadelphia where they killed these workers, makes no mention of them whatsoever in his speech, but instead does a call out, a shout out, a wink and a nod, as Ernie put it, to these white supremacists in the South. He would be campaigning later against Jimmy Carter, who was from Georgia, obviously from the South, and so Reagan wanted to appeal to that base of white supremacist voters and enthusiasts and apologists in the South. And so he gives this speech 45 years ago this week, and we have been connecting that 45 years later to the way that Donald Trump, in a matter of months, has upended 60 years of civil rights gains. It just so happens that Ernie Suggs is not just a reporter for the AJC, but along with our dear friend and brother Andrew Young, helped to write Andrew Young's memoir called The Many Lives of Andrew Young. I'll pivot to that a little bit later in this conversation. But since we're talking about these parallels, and I'll get to the black resilience thing in a moment. I ain't forgot about it, Ernie. But since we're talking about parallels, what do you make of what I've said now a couple times, that you go from Reagan to Donald Trump, and again, these protestations notwithstanding, that Ronald Reagan wouldn't recognize the GOP where he's here now. Again, he started this mess 45 years ago this week, and now in a matter of months, what it took Reagan years to do, that's the parallel. You see where I'm going, right? What it took Reagan years to do, Donald Trump has upended in 60 months. Civil rights gains like nobody's business. What's your read of that, Ernie?
Well, I think that a lot of scholars and critics would say that Ronald Reagan would probably be pleased as to what he is seeing, what he would have seen in what Donald Trump has been able to do. The parallels about, how Reagan would not recognize GOP now. I think a lot of people talk about that because of just how the MAGA portion of this whole GOP has come to dominate the headlines and kind of dominate the conversation as to what the GOP is doing. It's almost as if the GOP is kind of the puppet now and MAGA is the puppet master. So, I don't think Reagan, I think there's a slight distinction. I'm not sure if Reagan would necessarily recognize the Republican Party because, again, Reagan, Bush, and both Bushes did what they did subtly.
Mm-hmm.
And, would still kind of, it's kind of weird to kind of say it, but still with kind of a level of professionalism maybe, or level of, this is still what's best for America. So we're going to present it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Trump is just doing it with the sledgehammer, as I said, and it's almost kind of like he's doing what's best for me. So that's probably what he would not recognize.
Yes.
But he would recognize the results. He would recognize the fact that the Supreme Court is now 6-3.
Yep.
Or he would be, that's where they were going. That's what, Lee Atwater and all those people, this is what they were going for. You talk about Barack Obama, and, famously after he was elected, there was that famous lunch or dinner or whatever, where they got in the back room and said, we're going to do everything we can to make him a one-term president.
Mm-hmm.
So this has always been in the making. Now we're just seeing the manifestation of it, and it has gone so fast that it's kind of made our head spins.
Yeah, I'd only change one word in your sentence. It wasn't a backroom deal. Mitch McConnell said that publicly, so that was not said or done under the cover of darkness. Mitch McConnell said publicly, "My job is to make him a one-term president." And so I take your point though, and I agree with you. I don't know that policy-wise, the way Donald Trump moves is different than the way Ronald Reagan moved. The way he shows up is different, but policy-wise, I don't see a lot of daylight, to your point, between what Donald Trump is doing and what Ronald Reagan attempted to do and would have loved to have done more if he could. I look at it a different way. I think that in many respects, while people, again, keep saying that Ronald Reagan wouldn't recognize the GOP, I think in many respects Ronald Reagan would be envious of Donald Trump. Envious of that supermajority on the Supreme Court, envious of his presidential immunity, envious of all the power that he has amassed for the executive branch. I mean, like every other day, Donald Trump is pulling more and more power across the line to the executive branch and getting away with it. Reagan would be envious of a Republican Congress that does anything and everything that Donald Trump wants. He'd be envious that every time Trump gets in trouble, the Supreme Court comes to his rescue. He'd be envious. I mean, all across the board, I think that, again, rather than accepting this notion that Reagan wouldn't even recognize the party, that's nonsense. And I take Ernie's point. He might not recognize the way the party is operating these days because it's a MAGA party. But again, policy-wise, he ain't mad. Reagan wouldn't be mad about nothing that Donald Trump is doing. And again, I digress, but I think he'd be envious of Donald Trump in many respects. Ernie, you disagree?
No, I agree. I mean, I haven't seen it put that way or heard it put that way, but I think you put it perfectly. But let me ask you this question.
Sure.
Would Barack Obama or would any other president be envious of just that power that Donald Trump has been able to amass?
That's a great question. That's why you're a great reporter for the AJC. So now the table's turned on me. I thought I was the guy asking questions. Now Ernie's asking me a question, but it's a good one, and we can go back and forth on it. So here's my read of this. I don't know that Barack Obama is necessarily envious of the power that Donald Trump has. Number one. Because envy may be too strong a word. I make a distinction. I don't mean to get too philosophical here, but since you asked, I make a distinction between jealousy and envy. Jealousy, when you think about it, can be rooted in love. I'm jealous of you talking to this other guy because I'm in love with you. Jealousy can be, not always is, but can be rooted in love. Envy is never rooted in love. So I don't know that Barack Obama is necessarily envious of the power that Trump has. Having said that, I ain't never met a president who wouldn't like to have more power. Every president wants to have more power, and to the extent they can, and Barack did some of this himself. There were instances where Barack Obama pulled more power to the executive branch. Every president wants to do that. Now, I suspect they're gobsmacked, that might be the word, versus jealousy or envy. He's gobsmacked that Donald Trump perhaps is able to get away with this. But here's my other thought, and this is the part that you didn't ask about, but it rubs me raw every time I think about it. My critique of Barack Obama and my critique of Joe Biden is that neither of them showed up on day one like Donald Trump did with an agenda where they ran their playbook as aggressively as he has. Whatever you think of Donald Trump, when Donald Trump ran, he told you, I'm doing X, Y, and Z, and on day one, he started doing X, Y, and Z. None of us thought he would go this far with it, but you have to at least acknowledge that the cat knew what he wanted to do. He got in and he ran his playbook. I remind people all the time that Barack, and I'm not talking about breaking the law. I'm not stuck on stupid. Donald Trump is breaking the law with a lot of stuff he's doing. I get that. But Barack Obama, I remind people, had both houses of Congress when he got elected. He had the House and he had the Senate. And there is no comparison to the aggressive way that Donald Trump is running his playbook and what Barack Obama did. There's no comparison between the way that Joe Biden ran his play and the way that Donald Trump is running his play. So I think the lesson here for Democrats is if you ever get back to the White House, I think the lesson is you need to understand if you have both houses of Congress, you better run your play. And so I wonder whether or not Barack Obama isn't necessarily envious or jealous of Donald Trump, but I wonder whether or not in retrospect he is mad at himself for not running his playbook as aggressively as Donald Trump did, is doing. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. And I get exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I think I think Donald Trump, to his credit, is making all of us, scholars, historians, politicians, journalists, rethink politics, rethink government, rethink the presidency. And he's done, a masterful job at that as to how, in a couple of years, in 2028, whoever succeeds him, if he decides to go, it's going to be interesting to see how that next leader leads the country.
Well, I can tell you this right now. Whoever it is, Democrat or Republican, I can assure you of this. To your point about whether or not they're envious of the power that Donald Trump has amassed, I can guarantee you this. Democrat or Republican, ain't no new president giving no power back. I can tell you that. Whatever power Donald Trump, whatever authority he's pulled to the side of the executive branch, from the legislative branch, from the judicial branch, ain't nobody giving no power back. Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has and it never will. And if you ain't got to give power back, you ain't got to give authority back, ain't nobody turning it back. And that's true of anybody who takes the White House after Donald Trump. They will not say voluntarily, this is too much power for the president. We're going to give some of this back to the legislative branch. The judiciary needs some of the power that I have. Let me give some of this back to the judges. That ain't going to happen. I digress. We'll talk about black resiliency when we come forward on Tavis, Smiley.
Interrogating and unpacking. That's what we do around here. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we're proud to be celebrating 4 years on the air, but we know we could not have made it this far without you. We work hard every single day to curate conversations that will enlighten, encourage, and empower you. So, from all of us at KBLA Talk 1580, a big thank you for your love and support.
You don't know how much you mean to me.
And by the way, if your smartphone did not update automatically, be sure to download our brand new KBLA 1580 app. We think you'll love all the new features, including new ways to send us photos and video in real time, whenever news breaks, while we're on the air. It's a new dawn, a new day for KBLA Talk 1580, and we're glad you're on this journey with us.
You never turned away, you were right there. Thank you, thank you.
We asked seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month.
If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
This is the story of the one. As a lineman, he does whatever it takes to keep the power on in his community. And he wants a partner like Grainger who does the same. Grainger offers the professional-grade products he needs, from voltage detectors to harnesses to hard hats, plus fast, dependable delivery, so he can rise to every challenge. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Sometimes an identity threat is a ring of professional hackers. And sometimes it's an overworked accountant who forgot to encrypt their connection while sending bank details.
I need a coffee.
And you need LifeLock, because your info is in endless places. It only takes one mistake to expose you to identity theft. LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second. If your identity is stolen, we'll fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year with promo code NEWS at LifeLock.com. Terms apply.
Helping to make you the most knowledgeable person in your circle of friends. This is Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Ernie Suggs of the AJC, Atlanta Journal-Constitution, longtime reporter and author of the book, The Many Lives of Andrew Young. So we were talking earlier about the fact that Ronald Reagan shows up 45 years ago with his states' rights speech, clearly didn't care about black lives or black votes. Donald Trump doesn't 45 years later. That is what it is. But in the process, I take Ernie's point that black people in this 45-year period has been as resilient as ever. And that's part of our DNA, right? We are a resilient people. I'd only push back and say this, Ernie, as I suggested earlier, that we are not our grandparents. We're not our great-grandparents. We're not even our parents in some respects. I don't know that that black resiliency argument holds as much water with me now as it did maybe 30, 40 years ago.
Why so?
Primarily because I see the ways in which we have become entitled. I'll just give you three quick words. One, these Negroes are way too entitled these days. We're just too entitled. That's the first thing. Secondly, I see us, many of us, resting on our laurels or on their laurels. We are sitting in the shade of trees that we did not plant. And that makes Negroes a little lazy sometimes. I think that we are resting on our laurels. And I don't mean to indict all of us. I'm just talking about, writ large. I think we're too entitled. Mm-hmm. I think too much of us are, again, sitting in the shade of these trees that we didn't plant. We don't actually recognize that. And it's impossible not to argue that there's a level of apathy that's kicked in inside of our community. And as a bonus point, I would just add that the black elite have lost sight of the black poor. The black elite, it's that joke that Chris Rock told. There are black folk and then there are niggas. And I'm only saying it because that's the joke. But y'all understand the philosophical point that Chris Rock was making when he told that joke that everybody was talking about years ago, and that joke came out of his mouth. So those would be four things that I would put forward. Let me do this when we come forward. Now, remaining moments, I'll let Ernie Suggs respond to the answer I gave to his question. In what way? There's just four things. I could do more, but I think we're too entitled. I think we're resting on our laurels. I think there's far too much apathy, and I think that the black elite have abandoned everyday black people. We've gotten arrogant, and we seem to care about our own plight, but we're not as concerned about the broader collective, the everyday black folk who are still catching all kind of hell. I digress. The last word to Ernie Suggs when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
For all the freedom-loving folk, this is Tavis Smiley.
I feel like freedom.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Lucky Jr., publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you in the African-American communities of Los Angeles? Well, buckle up, because we got the scoop you've been craving. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free weekly publications conveniently available near you. Or hop on the digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Don't forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC for behind-the-scenes access and sizzling updates. No more FOMO. Let's stay informed, connected, and empowered together.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Los Angeles Regional Food Bank is on a mission to fight hunger and provide nutritious food to those in need across our community. They partner with federal, state, and local programs advocating for better policies and funding for critical hunger relief programs like Cal Fresh, the Emergency Food Assistance Program, and the Child and Adult Care Food Program. The food bank works with coalitions and local representatives to make sure hunger is addressed in every district of LA County. They also run nutrition education campaigns, raise hunger awareness, and source nutritious food for distribution, all while supporting regulations that allow food pantries to operate safely. Want to help? Visit lafoodbank.org or call 323-234-3030 to volunteer or find a food bank near you. Together, we can ensure that no one goes hungry in Los Angeles County. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Paul's new drone startup just lost its most genius computer scientist.
We just lost our best genius to some new genius who's got a genius new idea. I'm going to have to find a new genius, or two half-geniuses, and fast.
He needs a computer scientist that can keep his startup from falling down.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. When you sponsor a job on Indeed, it's easier for talented candidates to find it, which makes it easier for you to hire them. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found BenefitsCheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. BenefitsCheckup.org.
You know where you want to go in life, and City National Bank can help. City National knows the dedication it takes to build your vision for the future into a reality, and our team is here for you. We have a wide range of options to help, from personal savings accounts to interest-bearing money market savings accounts and more, all designed to help you get where you want to go. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Learn more at cnb.com. City National Bank is a subsidiary of Royal Bank of Canada, member FDIC.
Made fresh daily in Leimert Park, Los Angeles, California. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Ernie Suggs, longtime reporter with the AJC. I've got 4 minutes left here. I want to close with a quick Andy Young question at the very end. But at least in 3 minutes, Ernie, your response to my opining about the black resiliency.
Yeah, well, I think we can do it both ways.
Okay.
I think that, we're the talented, we W.B. Du Bois talked famously about the talented 10.
Sure.
And, we're not monolithic. So, yeah, there's some of us who are apathetic. Some may say that I'm apathetic at points. Some may say that I'm elitist or bougie at some point and, think more about myself and my level of people and friends and educated people and friends more so than I think about the other people. But I do think there's a part of us as a people, and there are people in our group, in our race, who are going to be at the forefront of this resistance, who's going to be at the forefront of this change. And they're the ones who are going to shepherd us. They're going to be the ones who are going to shepherd Black people through this. Whether everybody comes along at the same time is a different story. But I do think that we're gonna get over this, and we're gonna get through this.
Yeah, I think we will. I mean, we are resilient people. We've been through worse. Let's put it that way. We've been through far worse. As ugly as this is, we survived the Middle Passage. Those of us who made it,
exactly.
We survived the Middle Passage. We survived slavery. We survived segregation. We survived Jim Crow and Jane Crow. So we've been through worse, no question about it. Which does not mean that we should not be holding Donald Trump and other people accountable. But we are a resilient people, and I don't ever mean to suggest that we aren't that. I hope that you're right, that in the coming months and years that we will pull through this, and again, I no doubt in my mind that we will. But it's a moment. it's a moment of reckoning for Black America. I'll just leave it there. It's a moment of reckoning for Black America, and we could unpack that in myriad ways if we had the time. We do not. I want to close, since you wrote this book, The Many Lives of Andrew Young. By the way, Andrew Young is going to be a guest on this program in the next few weeks. He was supposed to be on tomorrow. He had to change his schedule, but we expect to talk to Andrew Young on this program in the not-too-distant future. But to your mind, with 90 seconds to go, what is the enduring legacy of this civil rights hero, congressman, ambassador, mayor, and American icon named Andrew Young?
First of all, that he's still here at 93. You know, he was at a press conference yesterday, complaining about a road in this neighborhood that's being too narrow.
Mm-hmm.
So he's still around, and I think the lingering aspect of who he is him as a Renaissance man. He has done so much, from being a civil rights leader to being the mayor of a city to being an ambassador to being a U.S. congressman, and to being someone who that we can all, whether you know him or not, we can all rely on him to give us honest assessments of who we are as a people, where we are as a country. One of the things, and I know you know him very well, he is never shy about giving his opinion, even when it is not popular.
That is true.
Even when it's going to be something that's going to be held against him, he's not ashamed to do that. And that's what I've always respected about him. That's what I've always loved about him. That's why I wrote the book, because he is just that one person who's always going to tell you how it is and be honest and fair with you. And then he's going to give you a hug when he's being critical of you.
That's Andy, man. One of my favorite people in the world, Andy Young. And I look forward to having him on this program in a few days from now. I am grateful to have had Ernie Suggs on this program today for this hour, talking about Ronald Reagan's states' rights speech 45 years ago and all the tentacles that offshoot that appeal to white supremacists now 45 years later. Again, his book is called The Many Lives of Andrew Young. He's longtime agency reporter Ernie Suggs. Ernie, thanks for your work and witness, man. Good to have you on this program.
Thank you so much for having me. I've always been a fan, and I'm glad to have been here.
You are far too kind. Thank you, sir. I appreciate you. More of Tavis, Smiley when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Misty Jordan with BIN News Now. The fines for parents of children who are caught violating the city of Detroit's curfew are going up. Black City Councilman Coleman Young II says it's needed.
We cannot be a thriving city and we have 4-year-old blood shed in the street.
The Detroit City Council voted 7-1 yesterday to approve the increase from $75 to $250 for the first offense. A second offense will go from $100 to $500. Attorneys for Sean Diddy Combs want a federal judge to release him from jail. They're requesting he be let out on a $50 million bail and allowed to reside in his Miami home ahead of his October 3rd sentencing. And Baltimore City Public School students and children 12 and under can now use their student pass to ride the bus, light rail, and subway services for free. Get BIN News now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Compassion sponsorship means food, healthcare, education, and more for a child in poverty. And there are thousands of kids who've been waiting over a year, and their wait. Sponsor a child with compassion today. Text the word radio to 83393.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The shooting Monday in a New York City building that houses the NFL's national headquarters has a very local connection. Shane Tamura, the identified man who shot and killed 4 people, was a running back for 2 Southern California high school football teams. Tamura played 3 years at Golden Valley High School in Santa Clarita. He transferred to Granada Hills Charter School in the San Fernando Valley for his senior year. The 27-year-old Tamura fatally shot himself after his shooting rampage. A letter found